like to hear from you how Odissi um, derived so much from the theatrical tradition in Odisha and Puri and Cuttack, and what the genesis of it was in the Annapurna theatre and so on and so forth.
Okay, okay. Well, actually, to be very honest and frank with you, I don't think there is really anybody who really knows when and where Odissi dance started. That's because we do say that yes, in the Nato Mandap of Konarak it is there. So it goes back to 13th century. But why is that we didn't see anything till 20th century? What happened? Why did it die out? Or it was a distinct form and then it becomes completely extinguished form. There must have been phases, as in all performing arts you find. There are phases when it touches the pinnacle. But then again, there is a phase again when you find that it is uh, completely extinguished. Nobody is practicing it. The reason will be two, naturally. One, sufficient input was not there. No new dancers were coming. No research was being done. And that sort of it dies out. The other is, then again, there is a revival process. And I think, as far as I am concerned, I became aware when I saw the first performance of the professional theatres in Orissa. As you perhaps know by now, that Orissa was the only state, only uh, state in the country, I am sure, not in the world, where there were professional theatre performing every day. And it was there in the course of, I'm talking about 49, 50, 51, 52, that I discovered, I discovered this later of course, when Guru Pankaj Charan Das, Keru Charan Mahapatra, Guru Deva Prasad Das, they were performing as actors, or not even actors, as comedians. Because those days the theatre had, we had copied the British tradition of proscenium theatre. And the proscenium theatre always had a cover scene and then the main scene. And the reason for the cover scene was to put a set around in the background because the stage was small. They didn't have revolving stage that time. So they used to have a cover scene which would roll down, either a street scene, a village street scene, or a passage, or maybe a garden, which is all, it was all hand painted. And one or two characters will come, they will do a comedy scene, or they will do a singer um, who's sort of a kind of a narrator also at times. He would sing a song and pass through the stage, taking about 5, 7, 10 minutes. And that was the time when they used to prepare the set behind it for the next scene. So these were, to join the scenes, they used to have this kind of. And there the comedy scenes were very popular because that was a kind of a relief. As you find in the films also, you have a very um, torrid, horrid scenes, and then you find a relief scene where a comedian is chasing a girl or something like that, or a song sequence comes in. Now, during those scenes, I found, um, of course, I didn't know that time that it was Pankaj Charan Das who would become so famous as a guru of Odissi, or Keru Charan Mahapatra, or Deva Prasad Das, or for that matter, Hare Krishna Behera, um, Gopi Krishna Behera in Annapurna A group at Puri. These people were doing this as comedy scenes and comedians, and but later, particularly after Guru Karuchar Mahapatra got married to Lakshmi Priya, um, then they used to have a, a dance sequence, say for about say 4 minutes, 5 minutes. They would be able to incorporate into the main scene. Suppose it's a zamindar or raja's sitting place, and a dancer is dancing, and they used to have duet dances, either with Kelucharan Mahapatra and his wife, and they would, and that would be perhaps the first time, because they had, Kelucharan had the tradition of Gotipo, but he did not have sufficient opportunity to be a performing dancer that time. So the professional theatre gave him this opportunity, that he could really perform as a dancer then. And then gradually people thought that a dance sequence can be incorporated. And it was also same in Puri. When Behra also started, he's incorporated an entire dance sequence as a sequence by itself, not a passing phase, including a choreography of a particular. If it was a mythology, it fitted in beautifully. If it was to sort of a Urbasi or Ramba, then he would have the complete dance sequence of about 7 minutes to 10 minutes, doing the entire choreography with a lot of extras, with a lot of dancing girls. And I would think that because they had that tradition of Orisi or Mahari or Gotipo or Sakinata, as you perhaps know, that we would say that it is Sakinata first, then Mahari, then Gotipo, then Orisi. People also change this sequence. I don't know, it depends on research now, whether it was first Sakinata, then Mahari, then Gotipo, because Mahari, as you know, was strictly for women. No male was allowed. Perhaps that must have been an impetus for the people to say that, all right, let's train boys also, because they also would be talented, and that's how the tradition of Gotipo, which was exclusively for male, for young boys. Now, if we stretch it again, that because Kelucharanam, Pankaj and Deva Prasad, all of them were adept in those traditions, they probably did not get an opportunity to perform by themselves, solo or otherwise, and they got this opportunity into the theatre, professional theatre. They were able to at least sustain themselves. And with the slight introduction of these entertainment as a particular acceptance by the audience, I think that encouraged them to adding on a dance sequences into theatre. In some time you will find that, particularly I'm talking more about Kelucharan because I distinctly remember he being a comedian. He was quite popular. He was quite a lively character. And then he would go in when this introduced these dance sequences of 2 minutes, 3 minutes, even as a passing scene, not the main scene. And then I have seen him performing along with his wife an entire dance sequence of 5 to 7 minutes also. And if it was a mythological play, it was easy. If it was not a mythological, at least a zamindar's sitting room, they could conceive of that. Today, I am afraid that if they do what they do in the jatras, they have dance sequences, but what they call this uh, break dance or record dance, and with a lot of scantily clad girls, and they with the popular Hindi music blaring in the background, they perform. That I would not bring into this our discussion at all, because that is neither the dance form that we are talking about, or neither it has anything to do with Orisi dance as such. Now, if we are thinking of how does it help revive the tradition of Orisi dance as a dance form, I would certainly give some amount of credit to the professional Odia theatre to have been able to bring in these famous dancers who became famous later, of course, that they brought in at least some amount of respectability, that yes, a dance performance can be incorporated into a play. It was while um, Kelucharan Mahapatra was in Annapurna Theatre, that Babulal Doshi started Kala Vikas Kendra in 1952. And there they thought that Kelu Mahapatra could be a teacher, um, to teach Odissi as a dance form. Because at that time, the people like Kavichandra Kalicharan Patnaik, Dhiren Patnaik, they had started saying that Odissi by itself is a dance form and it should be recognized as a classical dance form like the Kathak, Manipuri, Bharatnatyam. And they thought of presenting it in Delhi. And in 1954, they took a dance drama called Manini, in which it was supposed to have been composed entirely on the Odissi style of dancing and the songs also. When it was presented in Delhi, it was brought a lot of attention, and that time he was fairly well-known art critic writing for Statesman, Charles Fabry. He wrote very eulogizing it as a form, as a classical form, and subtly giving a lot of credit to the dancer. That time it was Sanjukta Panigrai with them, and Kalicharan Patnaik and Dhiran Patnaik. It was a seminar come performance, and so it brought a lot of attention. With the result that in 1955, Odissi as a solo dance was also included in our youth festival. There used to be inter-university youth festival with about, that time I think we had about 27, 28 universities. And it used to be a lot of, a huge gathering of people, boys and girls from all over the country. It was a great experience. I had the opportunity of being in the team in 1955, 56, 57. In all these 3 years, we had always somebody dancing. But in 55, when Priyamada Mahanti performed in youth festivals, she was not from Orissa. She was that time studying in Lucknow, and she was representing Lucknow University. And from Orissa, Susoma Mishra also was performing on behalf of Utkal University. Then we had only one university, the Utkal University. In that time also, again it brought a lot of attention to Odissi as a classical dance form, and Charles Fabry fortunately was there. And then he again said that it is certainly a distinct style of classical Indian dance. And so naturally 56 and 57. And by that time, Sanjukta Panigrai also had come up of age and distinction, I would say. And then, of course, it became a history. And Kelu Charan Mahapatra, Pankaj Charan Das, Deva Prasad Das, all of them now started going out and teaching Odissi as a classical dance form. Before that, when the girls were dancing, we used to have somebody from Calcutta, forget his name, Bose, of course. He said that he used to go to different the elitist houses and teach the girls called Oriental dance, which was, I think, an offshoot of Udaya Shankar's Oriental dance form, which had, I would not say that it adhered to any classical format or anything, but they would have mixture of Rabindra Sangeet, so with a bit of Rabindra. They would have also bit of Manipuri into it. They would perhaps have bit of Kathak also, as Udaya Shankar had done it. The point that I was interest, then that it had arrived. Odissi dance had arrived, coming from the theatre into regular teaching through Kalabikas Kendra, being recognized at Delhi as a dance form. And now people were ready to send their girls to learn Odissi dance. But something very interesting happened also at the same time, why Odissi became probably more popular, more known, if not popular, was Deva Prasad Das um, taught Odissi to Indrani Rahman. She was supposed to be a Bharatnatyam dancer. I don't know how good she was there, but her taking it up, and she was in Delhi and a fairly well-known person with very good connections in Delhi. So her learning Odissi dance was a news. Her performing Odissi dance in Delhi was a bigger news. And then it was perhaps thought that yes, Odissi dance is a dance that could be identified. Then we come to a stage where Odissi dance started being taught in different institutions. As I mentioned, Korabika Kendra to be the first one. Then a lot of other schools and colleges started. And then, of course, then you know that it became Utkala Sangita Mahavidyalaya later, which had an exclusive dance section. I think the emphasis was Odissi dance to start with, Odissi dance, Odissi music. But at the same time, I would say that coming back again to the first question, the influence of the theatre, because that used to be a very popular format then. It used to run for nights, for days, for months. One play would had run for about 250 nights, consecutive nights. And they had a sequence of dance also there because that was a background was zamindars, and in the zamindar sitting room they would have a sequence of dance. Then we come to Oriya films who had just started being made that time, and they also tried to include because then Kelucharan Mahapatra got a break. Of course, that was much later in 1964. One of the sequence was an Odissi dance item before the Zamindar. You know that at least those till that time people were thinking of justifying a dance sequence in a film, which is not there now, of course. You could put a dance anywhere in any film at any point of time. Even Sanyukta Panigrahi has performed Odissi dance in this Oriya cinema. Minati Mishra also performed in Arundhati film. She had 2 or 3 dances. But I would not be able to say that it was 100% Odissi dance. But the one sequence that I had the privilege of being associated with in 1964 was Manika Jodi, in which we had a duet dance, but it was, I would say, a mixture of our folk tradition of Chode dance plus the steppings of Odissi dance. But I would not say that it was completely Odissi dance. But at least that they were started thinking that the dance as a part of a production, film production could be incorporated. Then we come to now at a stage where we are finding that some of the younger boys and girls who are in the theatre are also incorporating. But I would not say they are able to incorporate the dance as a dance for the purpose of a dance, but a dance as a part of establishing a character or bringing out some amount of a new dimension to the production that they are doing. Now, whether we should ask ourselves at that point whether it is justified to have a particular dance sequence in a play which is justified, or whether it can be proven that yes, this level of understanding of this play would be um, enhancing the play production values, or is it just because to say that yes, the particular actor, when she is performing as a housewife or a college girl, is also a dancer, and so she also practices. But does it go by the clear traditional marks or by definition that Odissi dance as such. Now, we have to always remember one particular aspect of Odissi, that was it meant to be like the Kathak? Was it primarily a court dancing? And Odissi was the temple dancing. Should we dissociate ourselves from the temple to bring it into a production, in a play production or a film production? I have my reservations about it for the simple reason. I have been very often been asked by many of these people, Keluvabu and all, to be able to do, they would be happy to work with me. But I said that unless I am able to present Odissi dance as a classical pure form, I shall not include it into my production. Yes, a sequence, a very small sequence, I had done it in one of my plays, Amrutasya Putra, where the main character, who is a rebel or who is a lost child, he thinks, expresses himself in a kind of an explosion of a format which I cannot call it a Odissi dance. But I did ask Kelucharan Mahapatra to come and teach Hemanta Das, who is a very well-known dancer, a sequence about, say, about 2 minutes or so. I just said that this man would like to express himself and he can't express himself in words, and can he express himself in some kind of a physical activity, but bordering the classical format. I don't know. I mean, it was appreciated, but I cannot say that it was classical Odissi dance.
What do you think is the future of Odissi now? With festivals mushrooming all over and
This is a point that we have often discussed amongst ourselves. People who are aware, people who think seriously about performing art form. I think while we think that yes, Odissi has come to a point, but in the same breath, sorry, in the same breath, I will say
would you like
that
to
this
go?
this mushrooming of festivals of Odissi dance is bringing in a lot of people, perhaps out of curiosity, more because of the venue. When you do it in Mukteshwar, when you do it in Konarak, or when you do it at Rajarani Temple, you're getting people. But is there really any evaluation or monitoring system that is being done or not? That is worrying me now, that the stage perhaps has come now when the Odissi dance is taken for granted, that anybody, we put a label saying this is Odissi dance, it is accepted. I would go to that extent of even saying that if somebody comes and performs Kathak, now we know that Rani Khanna performs Kathak dance, but when she did a production in Bhubaneswar, now when Rani Khanna performed, she had several, well, I would call it a dance drama, going back to the old interpretation. All of it, major part of it was in Kathak style. But there were some, because she was trying to tell a story, which is not the traditional way of Kathak storytelling. When you bring in that you are trying to tell a story of Rabindranath Tagore in Kathak style, and when the narrative comes, all of it cannot be interpreted in the Kathak steppings or Kathak music or Kathak style of enactment. In that case, what do you call that? So the same sequence now applies to Odissi dance. That when Sanjukta danced with Rabindra Sangeet, there were a lot of hue and cry. People said that is it correct? Then she of course said that time that I am doing an Odissi dance. It is immaterial what music, what song accompanies it. If I can perform it in the traditional style, keeping the purity intact. That is one point. The second point is that we tend to now find dancers who have learnt it for 2 years, 3 years, but ready for a stage presentation, whether how good they are. Then the third obvious difficulty, I think it's a lacuna actually, that we have so many competitions now to encourage dancers that not necessarily a trained dancers get elected or selected to be the first, and whoever comes, like it's a popular voting in the television channels, that you find that somebody who is not necessarily the best singer becomes the best singer, and he sort of gets awards and a lot of money and a lot of publicity. So the mushrooming is good in one point, that you are throwing open the gate for many youngsters to come and learn Odissi dance. But have we got enough gurus, teachers, to teach them properly? And I think this problem will continue until we find a stage where it is necessary that we perform it primarily for the classical form of dancing.
Can you just say a little bit about how Annapurna split up and the dates? Because there's always a bit of confusion about Annapurna A, B, C.
Mm. The concept of a professional theatre in Orissa, I think, started way back in 1939. Although there have been 1927, to be more precise, was Radhakanto Rangamancha in Kathpada. That's in near Jagat Singhpur. But it was built by a zamindar for his own. He used to get people to perform Rasa Leelas and plays and things like that. But in 39-40, it was Kabichandra Kalicharan Patnaik who was with Rasa Leela parties. He thought of a professional Oriya theatre called Orissa Theatre. And it was with modern plays and things like that. But when there was a split between the actors and the management, well, the management that time meant Kabichandra Kalicharan Patnaik, who was the playwright, he was the director, he was the music director, he was the dance director and everything. And he had got actors who later become quite famous, like Durlabh Singh, Priyanath Mishra, popularly known as Piro, Samuel Sau, very, very well known and adored by people as Babi. There was a split there. And then at that point of time, some of them went away, and an old person from Puri district, forgetting the exact village, he started taking these people and starting Annapurna Theatre. Unfortunately, again there was a split there. Some of the actors left that, and then they came and started a company in Cuttack. And that was the time when they said that Annapurna Theatre, it was A, and the Annapurna Theatre, Cuttack will become Annapurna Theatre B. Their manager at that time, he perhaps will be recorded in history of Oriya Theatre, Bauri Bandhu Mahanti. He was a absolutely exceptional person. He was able to handle the actors. He was able to manage the. It was a touring party, so they used to go from one place to the other, but with very little money. But wherever he would go, he would get some local sponsors. At that time, we didn't have this kind of corporate sponsorship, but he would go and get the local eminent people, lawyers, doctors, to patronize him, forced them to come to see the play, and brought in a lot of change. But Annapurna B group at Cuttack gained in reputation, although it started much later, then Orissa Theatre, then Annapurna A Group, which will be about 1943 or so. But by 44, 45, Annapurna Theatre at Cuttack became more important than Annapurna Theatre A. Because Annapurna Theatre A was more of a touring company. They used to go out in long tours of 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, like the Jatra parties today. The Jatra parties do not have a place, permanent place, but they move around the whole state and they do a lot of business that way because that's purely commercial business enterprise. There is hardly any input, creative input into it as far as I'm concerned, as a theatre person, as a theatre worker. Annapurna B Group at Cuttack had the advantage that the playwrights at that time were in Cuttack, most of them, whether it was Bhanjo Kishore Patnaik, Ramchandra Misro, Manoranjan Das, Ananda Shankar Das, Ramchandra Misra, all these people were there, and so naturally, and they used to have a play almost every month, a new play. So they would run for 30 nights, 40 nights, 50 nights, and the second play is ready, then they start. So it used to, they needed about 3, 4 plays ready at any point of time. And then you had, by early 60s, Janata Rangamancha. Again, some of people from Annapurna B split and went and formed a cooperative theatre group, which is again a very rare exception in Indian context. And they also had these people, Narasingha Mahapatra, Basanta Mahapatra, Kamala Thekar Mahanti, Kamalakanta Mahanti. All these people could churn out, almost churning out plays month after month after month. And that is how. And then again there used to be a split. Some of these people from Annapurna B group, Annapurna A group, Janata Theatre went and made Rupasri Theatre. That again went because it needs money, it needs management and very strict operational costs. Then they had Kolasri Theatre also. Then many theatres after that. But those are short lived. But the theatre tradition, if you say the professional theatre, was these primarily these three: Annapurna A group, Annapurna B group, and Janata. For some time in Barampur, some people thought that they will have, and since Annapurna had become kind of synonym with the theatre, so they called it Annapurna C at Barampur. But that ran for, I think, about 6 months to a year or so.
Okay, and can you just say a few words about Jayantika?
Okay.
Hiren Patnaik and Kalicharan Patnaik and Jayantika.
That was primarily for that purpose.
For the
Till
revival of Odyssey.
revival of Odissi, Manini, after that, although they had sort of a
It
certain,
lasted a year.
I would say it lasted about 2 years, I would say. But it had a very unfortunate ending. You know, all of them split. I mean, Minati was also there, Sonju was there, everybody was there, but it did not have any lasting. I mean, you would hardly have any reference, but yes, to that particular thing that they were able to take it to Delhi and get it established up to that point.
Which year was this?
This is 1953-54. But that after that, it was they were at each other's neck.
What were the points of difference? Was it
Well, I mean, primarily because Kalicharan Patnaik wanted to take all the credit. Dhiren, of course, wanted to take the credit that he had done some amount of research and he was an Odissi dancer himself. Um, and Sanjukta thought that because of her performance, it was necessary, whatever accolade, whatever attention got, it was because of her. And Priyambada thought that she was the brain behind the whole thing. So that is difference. And then, luckily for Sanju said she went off and performed well, became professional, got recognition, got Padma Shri. She went on. There was never, she never looked back. When Priyambada, in her own way, she diverted herself to academic career, but she also went up to become a vice chancellor and become a Padma Shri. Although she has danced very little, but she got all the recognition. And Minati Mishra, in that way, she danced less, but she became guru of most of the today's gurus of Odissi dance, because she was the principal, the first principal of Utkala Sangita Mahavidyalaya, and continued for 20 years. So each one of them had played their roles, but it was, to me, it appears very limited roles. But because there was nobody else, so they became outstanding in those small times. If you put those into small modules, you will find that each one of them have done their roles. But that's about all. If you say that if you, they are, of course, Minati Mishra is supposed to be celebrating 60 years of her stage performance. But if you count the number of stage performance, it will be very limited really. But in the same breath, I have to say that if you today find anybody who is a guru, apart from Kelu Charan Mahapatra and Pankaj Charan Das and Deva Prasad Das, everybody else would be a disciple of her. I mean, disciple in the sense that because he was the principal and these people have gone through Utkal Sangit Mahavidyalaya. Except the one exception, maybe one or two would be that Raghu Datta and people like that. Uh, but they had not come into that kind of an eminence as Kelucharan. Kelucharan, again, exception, as I told you beginning, that it is a miracle. I mean, this kind of thing
What
can
was the
happen.
reason for the miracle?
Because he was be able to get the support of Sanjukta Panigrahi, who had by that time had got a name for herself, for her performance, primarily for performance, not only because of that. And she, because she traveled so much and so far and so wide and so fast, that Kelu got the recognition because the credit used to go to him that he was the composing the choreography. So that was a big thing. So he was being able to be associated, as it happens in entertainment world, that if you are successful financially, a lot of is also sort of comes in that you are also creatively successful. And this went on for about almost 12 to 13 years until Kelu left that and joined Odissi Research, and then he left that and then he started his own. By the time he started on his own, Sanjukta was on her own by then. And she then started taking the credit that she was also the choreographer of her, many of her later productions, where Kelu's name was not mentioned. So it is quite normal, natural, because by that time Kelu also had established himself not as a choreographer. Then he started again started dancing. You know this that of course I had told him that time that you are now dancing to earn more money than as a choreographer or as a guru, because for it to see your performance people would be paid. It is very similar, I think, if you really look at it in a different perspective, that like Birju Maharaj, who is an excellent guru, but for his performance people would pay much more than to take him only as a guru. And with the result, then if he now goes and gives a choreography for a film, they are prepared to pay him 200 times more than they would pay him for a stage presentation. So you see, unfortunately, well, I mean, it's a trend all over the world that somebody who is a trained classical performer, when he comes in and becomes a traditional performer on the film or in a media, he tends to get much more paid, A, then he gets much more recognition, B, and then he has then starts a fan following, becomes an icon, and which I think is a part of a downtrend of the whole process of creative.
You were naturally working with Kelubabu much more than with Pankacharan Das. Was there a reason for this?
Yes, the reason was very simple because Pankaj used to be in Puri most of the time, whereas Kelu Babu used to be in Cuttack, and then that is primarily. And then he had, as I told you, he was one of the first person who went round to people's houses to teach them because there were no schools at that time. Until when the Kalavikas Kendra came, then of course he joined there. He was the first person who joined there.
He was accessible.
He was accessible easily, naturally.
Right. So it wasn't a question of he was better or worse, it was just he was there.
He was there. He was there primarily.
Yeah.
And he was known more than the others.
He was known.
Naturally, because he was one of the first. Raghu Datta and all, they came later. They were trying, or for that matter, our Odisha Dance Academy,
Gangadhar.
Gangadhar was Kelu's student. Started from Kalavikas Kendra. So that time, whoever were there, all of them were there. Accessibility, A, the availability, B, and then they were coming there because none of them had that time any hope or idea that it is going to be so lucrative later on. That's why you find the mushroom. You are talking about mushrooming of dance festival. I am thinking of mushrooming of the institution. Now they are prepared to accept anybody and everybody without a screening even. Everybody is taken in to be an Odissi dancer. Like somebody asked me that how do you select an actor? I said that, well, if I ask, do you want to act, there will be hundreds. And then if I say that, yes, I'll pay you 50 rupees a day, then there will be 500. But if I say that I'll only select after I have done a 15 days workshop, it comes down to 50 people. So that will go on in this kind of a situation where the actor, a performer, is slightly different from an entertainer. Now, if it's an entertainment, like now it's so many TV channels there, that there is a dearth of actors now, that you can't get good actors because there are so many channels. So it's anybody who can come, anybody whoever is there available, they are prepared to come and do it. And they compromise to that extent now that they are prepared to do an episode which lasts for 20 minutes, 26 minutes within 6 hours. I cannot comprehend a situation like this, that you can shoot an episode of 26 minutes within 6 hours. I would take at least 6 days, if not more. That would depend on the attitude, the availability of funds, and because it's spreading so fast, and when there is a downtrend, it is not the quality that matters, the creativity that matters, it is now availability. As I said, Kelucharan Mahapatra was available, not necessarily the best, but certainly available. And then that's why I keep on repeatedly saying that he was an exception to prove the rule that life can't be so easy. But of course, he has gone through a lot of hardship, like every other first person who started. In this context, I remember Vallatol, who revived the Kathakali. It was completely extinct. But this old man of 78 he said, no, I must. But of course, then he was in a very established social elite, coming from a very rich traditional family. But he was not acceptable to anybody until again, because he got a princely patronage, and in Trichur they could start the school. Then later it became Kalamandalam and became famous and later on. So it always happens, and it will always happen. We might come in a phase when we find that everything is going fine the way we wanted it. But then there will be a phase again when we will find that it's so down and out that it is extinct, and the question of revival comes.